in time-honoured fashion, I rise to say that this has been an interesting debate, just as others have said, and I think to express some gratitude, I think, on behalf of the committee about the tone of this debate and the complex issues that have been raised, in which the committee have been debating and discussing. I think that statements that have been made today have been considered, and there have been valuable contributions across the chamber. That consensus that's been brought about with the sainted Bruce Crawford, our convener, has become almost a contagion. It's great to see that sometimes that doesn't lead to interesting afternoons in this chamber, but today I think it has, because it highlights a great degree of common objectives here that maybe we should focus on in the future and make some progress on. The Devolution and Further Powers Committee, of course, considered the detailed areas of the Smith Commissions, and recommendations clearly have yet not been fully implemented into draft legislation. The committee's report, as you have heard once or twice this afternoon, has been agreed unanimously by all members of the committee, and I believe is a stronger report because of that fact. And, Presiding Officer, it shows, I think, that the committee system is stronger than some people believe, and it's a good example of what can be achieved. Indeed, I think it's the first parliamentary report on this issue that I'm aware of, at least, that all parties were on the Smith Commission have signed up to. I echo the views of the convener and pay tribute to all members of the committee for their efforts in achieving that outcome. And I think the way they have approached it, and you've heard some contributions here today about some difficult areas. They've taken a particular interest in many of those areas, and they've reflected that in their discussion. And as a consequence of that considered report, focusing on the facts, letting the facts speak for themselves, focusing on the job in hand, I think that we have received wide acclaim for the report across Scotland, which Bruce Crawford, the convener, mentioned earlier. And as a consequence, for that reason, both the Scottish and UK government need to pay very careful attention to the committee's report and ensure that any future Scotland bill addresses the issues that we have raised. Our report is a considered and constructive contribution to the process and further devolution. Where the process will or should end was not the aim of the committee inquiry and its scrutiny. And maybe that was we were able to get consensus because that issue is still ongoing. And I'm sure that the committee and the discussion about further powers, which were mentioned by Annabel, Goldie and indeed the Deputy First Minister, we have plans, to get the Secretary and new Secretary of State for Scotland to come in before the committee and indeed the Deputy First Minister. And there will be opportunities to talk about that further devolution that may and may not be there. Our focus, Presiding Officers, was whether the previous UK Government's draft legislation clauses had fully implemented the Smith Commission recommendations. Our conclusion was clear. In substantial areas, the draft clauses do not yet achieve that objective. Members have considered in detail the areas that we have identified where redrafting, clarification or proposals have still to be developed if the further powers that have been agreed to by all parties are to be delivered. I want to make it clear that I do not approach this debate in the spirit that the pursuit of new powers for this this Parliament, as alluded to by Jackie Baillie and Alison Johnson, are an end in themselves. But I do recognise that the Smith recommendations have been agreed by all the parties represented in this chamber, and that the new UK Government must deliver on both the spirit and the substance of the Smith Commission recommendations. At present, the draft legislation clauses do not do that. And at this point, I'm looking at Iain Gray, who uses the quotes from John P. Mackintosh and having in the past, and I'll use this one, I think, because we don't have the position we want now, it doesn't mean to say we can't achieve that position as a Parliament. And he said in a speech on the Scotland Bill before the House of Commons in 1976, institutions have to be the servants of political demands. We have people in Scotland who want a degree of government for themselves at the Scottish level. It's not beyond the wit of man to devise the institutions to meet those demands and thus strengthen the unity of the United Kingdom. I want to briefly highlight in closing this debate, on behalf of the Devolution and Further Powers Committee, the headline areas where current draft clauses fall short. On welfare, as we've heard, the current clauses do not only do not deliver Smith, but also that the significant challenges will exist in implementing the proposed powers. On income tax, the significant implementation issues remain to be resolved, such as the definition of a Scottish taxpayer, how to avoid double taxation and the timing of phasing of new powers in relation to those arriving under the Scotland Act 2012. On the fiscal framework, the detail of this framework should be available for scrutiny by this Parliament before the issue of legislative consent for any new bill is considered. And then on the Crown Estate, the committee has serious concerns regarding the potential for competition and confusion that may arise from the creation of two Crown Estates. No one wants to rule out the chance for inward investment, as Lewis MacDonald alluded to, but the committee were clear that there must be scope for shared investments between the two Crown Estates, with a fair share of revenues accruing to Scotland. On the permanency of the Scottish Parliament, that the Scottish electorate be asked to vote on the referendum should the issue of permanency come into question, as well as majorities being required in the Scottish and UK Parliaments. As Bruce Crawford highlighted in the opening debate, the issue of intergovernmental relations has permeated every aspect of the committee's scrutiny of the proposals for further devolution. There is no question that the shift from a devolved settlement based on a system largely separate powers to one of shared powers cannot be borne by the current non-statutory ad hoc nature of intergovernmental relations currently at work in the UK. Again, issues that were taken in interest of Tavish Scott and indeed Linda Fabiani and Elaine Murray pointed out some of those complexities today. In particular, the committee is clear in saying that the need for a revised intergovernmental structures will be most critical in the areas of taxation, welfare, employment, support and European Union representation. The structures that emerge will be required to deal with the uneven distribution of powers across the constituent parts of the UK. The committee is also clear in stating that the general principles underpinning the operation of intergovernmental relations should be placed in statute. Presiding Officer, the role of Parliament in scrutinising the operation of intergovernmental relations in this new landscape of devolution will be a key challenge to which this institution must respond. The Devolution Committee intends to consider these issues in the coming months. I know, Presiding Officer, that this is an area that you are looking into, along with the Speaker of the House of Commons. We will play our full part as a committee in supporting you to ensure committees in both parliaments hold their governments to account. This will involve learning from practice of parliamentary scrutiny and other jurisdictions, and seeking to develop a set of principles which could structure parliamentary scrutiny in this area. We have set a high bar today in terms of the common approach of the committee, and I think I speak on behalf of the committee at this point by saying we will continue that high standard in the future. We'll seek to get reports to this Parliament that achieve the level of agreement that we have at this time. That will be our challenge in the coming months. I don't say that will be easy, Presiding Officer.